Contrary to what you may think, that's not a picture of the present supervisor in the town of Mooers, but we'll get to him in just a minute. Calvin said we ought to start with a picture of Abe Lincoln. We're recording this program in Mooers on the 23rd day of February 2001. I wanted to come up here for a recent open house for this brand new building, and we finally made it today. The crowds aren't here, but we got the important people here. Jack Dragoon, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Supervisor for Mooers. We've talked to Jack at his business across the street on numerous times. I thought when I turned that corner on 22 and 11 that I could smell the pancakes, but not today, huh?
No.
That'll be coming up though, won't it?
27th of March.
Oh, that and St. Patty's Day, two of the big times in the year. Birthdays I don't care about anymore, but Dragoons and St. Patty's Day are very important to me. We like to do historic things in this program so that people in the future will be able to tell what life was like in whatever year we recorded it. This happens to be 2001. We made a real big deal out of Y2K, and it kind of came and went for people like you and me.
Right.
Just
sure
another year, another day. But you guys have planned this fabulous new town buildings for a long, long time. And when was the open house? Now, we're recording this February 23rd. When was the open house? I can't remember. It was at least a month ago, wasn't it?
Oh, it was in November, wasn't it?
Yeah, Calvin made it here, but I didn't make it here that day.
Oh, I don't. Time keeps flying. I think it was in November.
But it still smells new. I walked in today and it smells, boy, just brand new. This was a long time dream, huh?
Sure was. We've had a building, our old town hall in Mooers Forts, which is really outdated. It was built in the late 1800s.
I would say.
It was a two-story building, and on the third floor, as you say, like in the roof, there was a fire there one time, and that's all was burnt. We had no water. The insulation, you could get up to the top and you could look right down. Of course, there's no cellar on there, and it just was taking too much money, and the ceilings are so high, and it had been too hard to heat, and we just spent lots of money. And so we've been putting a little money aside over the years, gradually. At one time, we were hoping to get the county building up here, and we dragged there along a couple of years, and then they finally wanted to use it for a storeroom. We were hoping that time to put our highway department and our town offices all in one location. But it turned out that the county wanted to keep the building. So then we prolonged. In '97, we built a new town garage, which Calvin, I think he probably bought back that time, was up there, and we had a big open house. That building was done all by the town employees, built it. And I think we're farther ahead on that part. And then we also kind of been dragging our feet because the village has been having a hard time to survive over the past years, and we knew eventually we would probably be taking over the village. So until we knew what was going to take place, we didn't want to build some other place and do something and then end up taking over the village and having more buildings, and more buildings you got, more upkeep you got, and everything. So as it turned out, it took a year of planning, and we did after the village dissolved, we took over in 96. Then we started planning our outlay and talked with the firemen, and of course the firemen themselves had purchased this land themselves and turned it over to the village. And we decided to have everything in one location. As a firehouse at that time, that needed quite a bit of work. The water system was very poor. We had septic system problem. The insulation wasn't up to par. And then they needed an addition for the ambulance. So we decided to go this route, which you see here today, and took us probably a year and a half. We're not well heeled like some towns are, but we went gradually slow at it, and with our highway superintendent, which is probably one of the best carpenters you can find in the North Country. Under his leadership in designing part of this room, especially himself, this is his pattern he picked out. And we had some of our own crew that helped out, plus we hired a couple part-time employees to work along. And this is what you see here today, and everybody, I guess, is pretty proud of it.
Well, you know, it's really nice to have a town this size where people chip in like that. Because if you paid an outside contractor top dollar to build this, you'd be paying for the next 30 years. But when everybody chips in and does their part, and you have talented people in your small towns, it's amazing what you can accomplish. This is one of the nicest facilities of its kind I've ever seen. And for people who've never been to Mooers, it's worth a trip right up here on, just come up 22 to Mooers from Plattsburgh, make a left-hand turn onto 11. It's just down the road a piece across from Dragoon's. We talked about the fire station and what a hubbub of activity that was during the ice storm back in 1998. It's a distant memory, but not so distant that we don't recall how many people slept here overnight and what a hubbub of activity it was. But I don't know if we dreamed in February of 1998 that this kind of a building would be here 3 years later. Did you?
No, but we, the town board, and we knew we were going to have something different. And, you know, I'm not sure today if you're going to be going through the fire department side, but they've got to be really commended for what they did. Because we had some damage with the roof from the ice storm, and we agreed with the firemen. We met together, which we worked very well, and trying to lay it out, and we told them we would take care of all the outside work. So the roof had to be redone over because we put another bay on to have the center of the roof come between the center of the bays. So that had to be all new rafters. So everything on the outside the town did on the fire department side. On the inside, they did they went through it all themselves with their own help, and just very little outside help was furnished on the inside except for the firewall. Of course, at first we didn't realize that. We went over a certain amount of square feet, then we had to have a firewall. Well, we presumed, at first we were told that we could put the sheetrock, a couple layers of that would serve as our firewall. But then they come back again and stated we had to have a full cement block firewall. So in that part, there's a firewall on that end where the truck bays are and their office spaces where they meet. Then from here on this part against this end, there's also another firewall. So in case of something would happen, there is two full firewalls. But also on the inside, they gutted everything out. They made a larger room, meeting room. They made a kitchen room, all new cupboards. They've got a walk-in cooler there now. We've been waiting for the last 10 months. We've been quoted to be able to get a generator, which we're hoping to have hooked up before I talked to Rodney Brown there just a couple of weeks ago, and he said it's coming. So once we get that, and in case of another storm or something, we weren't too well heeled before, but we were better in lots of places to getting along, but we should be very well set up.
Well, listen, we love to live in the North Country, but we never quite know what's going to be around that next corner, do we?
No, not after you've had floods and ice storm and a few blizzards but the outside will survive better than what they will in the city.
This is a great room. Now this, what do you call this room? This is almost an all-purpose room. I know I talked to Nettie Rabideau, and we're going to, hopefully if she doesn't hide on me, we're going to talk to her before we're through today. She's been a court clerk here for at least 5 or 6 justices, maybe more than that down through the years. She's pretty proud of this. They had court here until 9:30 last night, but you have your regular meetings in here and lots of other stuff, don't you?
Right. If there's any, some of the county or some organizations of the state has used it a few times, but we hold our monthly meetings here. Of course, there's court here once a week. So that room is used for that. And before, what we had before,
this is a dream city, isn't it? Huh?
It's a lot different than what we had. And we went, Dick Mooers and myself, we went to about 3-4 other towns to see what they had, how they laid it out. As you can see how we got this laid, we got one for each council member. And our highway superintendent and our town clerk, we have room for everybody up here. And Dick finished these desks, how they're put together here. They're
this
just
is kind of incredible how they put them together with a little wedge in between so that it looks neat.
Yep, he did that. And Ross's Point, if you notice there's where we got the idea of this layout up here on top. So we didn't do a lot of planning, but we went to 2-3 other places and see how they were laid out. And
you got to be pretty proud of it.
yeah, the town board members and everybody, they all worked out pretty well on this. And
that's great. We're going to take a walk around this entire building, and yes, we're going to sneak over to the fire station. Who knows where we're going to end up before we finish. And we hope you stay with us for this entire tour, being recorded on the 23rd day of February 2001, right up here in Mooers. Well, we walked outside that meeting room and courtroom into the foyer here. This is a symphony of snowmen around here in this little entrance room. It's really nice. Got a nice picture on the wall. We've got the town of Mooers gratefully acknowledging Senator Ron Stafford of the 45th District for his help here. We've already mentioned Ron's name. We just realizing how many buildings he's getting named after him in the North Country, but nobody's worked any harder to get money for the North Country and to help us with projects. What would we do without Ron? Huh?
That's for sure. He's been very great, appreciated, and a couple times he's got us some to help out on our town garage, plus we got some money here that we put into this joint building together, which is very much.
Yeah, that's great. And of course, Jack's black up here. We found out that the open house was the 29th day of October. That's pretty close to November.
Well, that was close.
I understand there were a lot of people here that day.
And this place was packed. This room here was packed, and some people I was noticing being up front had to leave and go home.
Isn't that amazing? Well, a lot of people are pretty proud of what happens in their town, and we've talked about it so many times before. These little towns are proud of their history. They're proud of how people stick together in times of need. How many times have we talked about that, you and me, down through the years? It's great to live in a town this size in the northern part of northern New York, isn't it?
It sure is. And as you can see right here, this is our town historian. Around Halloween, you'll see something different there, and different times of the year. This is about, and she takes care of this by herself. So, she probably gets some of the money out of Orville's when he's sleeping. But she's a very dedicated woman, and it's just something to be proud of.
Before we finish today, we're going to talk to Carol Netto, whose husband is the justice up here in Mooers, and Carol is the historian, and she's got her own little room here, and it's a pretty nice one.
Oh yes, we can't go in that room. That's her room, and she's very well appreciated, and she does one outstanding job.
It's great. You can surround yourself with a lot of nice people in a town. How long have you been supervisor?
Oh, around 25 years.
Isn't that amazing? You got to do it till you get it right, huh?
Well, we got a few things yet to get done, but we're coming very fast at it. In this room, as you notice, this door here is, we can lock it. So when they have courtroom night, if people have to come in and use the facilities, they can come into here, but they cannot get into our offices and that. We keep it locked all the time.
That's great. Yeah, you have to think of security, I imagine, when you build. I heard when Calvin was coming up, I heard this big buzzer going off. I said, what the heck is that? Somebody's coming.
Yeah, somebody's coming. As well as, we put that in for, like, somebody's in the office by themselves and that, and they can realize that somebody's coming in. And today you never know.
That's really great. Well, we're going to continue our tour right up here in Mooers of the town offices. We moved in the next door into the inner hallway here outside the main offices. Jack, and you said somebody donated that picture?
Yes, Andrea Labarge at our open house presented the town with this picture, which is a pretty nice picture, as you can see.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The whole place is so neat, smells good, and looks nice, and I hope it does for a long, long time. You should be very proud of it. Oh, look at the picture of the old Clinton County Courthouse, which I look at every single day of my life when I go to work right next door.
Yeah, that was donated to us.
That's great. A lot of people work together to make things happen.
I think we got that at our open house just a minute.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. You think something says something on the back, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, look at the names. Everybody signed it.
Yeah. This is from our legislators. Celine Paquette, as you can see, of course, she represents Area 1, which she does a fine job. She was chairperson at that time. Sam Crown-Blee, which is also our district, he served Area 2. So we're pretty fortunate to have two fine people representing our district, which is very, they use us very well. And we also had Joe Drew, Area 3, Stephen Bowie, Area 4, Keith DeFayette, Area 5, John May, Area 6, and we got John Landry.
That's Jim Langley.
Yeah.
Gladys Perry, George Rabideau, Don Garrett, Bill Bingle, and Bill Favreau, the attorney, right? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yep.
There, now you got some autographs. In case you're looking at this picture in 2020, maybe they'll be worth 75 or 80 cents a piece.
Put it on eBay.
Yeah, put it right on eBay.
I told them they should have it down below where, people could see it all the time, their names are representing. Bill Bingle, he's also gives us lots of information when we need it, budget time and stuff. His office is very much. All of them has used us very well.
As Clinton County Administrator, we did a recent interview and tour with Bill Bingle that took a couple of hours. We've been wanting to do that for a long time. We've actually, our little corner has visited most of the county offices, and we like to get out into the country, up to Mooers every now and again.
They were up here they had their meeting here when they presented us this picture.
That's really neat. I want to come in here and meet a friend of mine whom I've talked with on the telephone 4,000 times down through the years. And yesterday when I talked to her, she said, "No, Gordie, don't make me come back. We're going to be in court till 12 o'clock at night." But she came here to see us. Nettie, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm just so delighted to finally meet you. I can't remember the first time I ever talked to you on the phone, but we were both maybe about 30 years younger than we are now. I would guess. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I think it's probably going around 14 years.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I know you've been around doing it for a long time, and you and I were discussing on the phone yesterday how many justices you've worked for here as court clerk, and name them for me.
Well, I started with Bob Lamberton, and then it was, I went to Larry Begore, Cindy Sample, and now I have Orville Netto and Jeff Menard.
It's amazing how many things you've seen. We're not going to discuss individual cases, but you've seen some very interesting things, and if people think stuff doesn't happen in the country, they're wrong, because there have been some pretty high-profile cases through this court down through the years. I imagine it's been an education for you.
It sure has, yes. I've enjoyed it, though. I really enjoy the people.
Oh, yeah, we all do. How did you first decide that you were going to take this job? Did it just something that happened?
No, Bill Begore was very ill, and they needed a court clerk. I believe, if I remember correctly, whoever come up to check out the paperwork said that the town should have a court clerk. So Bob asked me if I wanted the job, and I said yes, and I've been here ever since. How
many times have you regretted it? That's what I want to know.
Not too many. Not too many.
There are frustrations with everything, and this life is a very interesting, bizarre, and crazy time sometimes when you have people standing 16 deep and everybody wants justice served, and you have to say, can you hold off for just a minute? And the telephone rings a great deal.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yes.
there is a lot of justice done in these municipal courts around Clinton County, and I want to give tremendous credit to the people who dedicate their lives to jobs like yours, the court clerks. Where would I have ever been in the radio business all those years without wonderful people in the courts? And the justices, too, because it's, as you and I have discussed many times, it requires a sophistication that you didn't have to have when, for example, Roger Dajnaw started his job up there in Schuyler Falls like 43 or 44 years ago.
Right.
It's you've got to go to school, and you've got to know what you're doing when you go to court these days, don't you?
Yes, yes, you do. But it's a pleasure working with all these people here too. You know, not only serving the public, but also working with these wonderful people.
It's great. It's satisfying. Any job is satisfying if you do it right. And I know you didn't look forward to staying here till all those hours last night, but they treated you well, and you got out of here at 9:30 anyway.
Yeah, right.
Do you live right nearby, Nettie?
I live 3.5 miles away in Moores Forks, in the village of Moores Forks.
Have you always lived here? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, yes, I've always lived here. Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you my age.
As long as you don't tell them everybody knows my age, so I don't even care anymore.
No, I was born and brought up in Moores Forks, yes. In Cannon's Corners, as a matter of fact.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You know, people are passionate about their hometowns. That's what I love about this North Country. People stick together. These little towns have their celebrations, you know. Right out behind this beautiful new building are all the places where they have their picnics and their stuff out back, and you know, people do get together for fun in these little towns, and they really love where they were brought up.
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. I wouldn't want to live any other place.
Yeah.
This is my home.
And it has a lot to do with the people.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. People are nice. We're like family, you know.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. We started our program in your beautiful big courtroom. You showed me in there before Calvin ever came here. You described it for me on the telephone, but I had no idea it was that fantastic.
It is beautiful.
Isn't that great?
It's gorgeous. Yes, it is. Really nice.
Nice to have plenty of seats for everybody to sit down and to sit up there. Courts are held once or twice a week?
Once a week. I have one judge 1 week and the other judge the next week.
It alternates.
Alternates, yes. And we have a couple jury trials coming. We haven't had a jury trial in our new building yet, but we've got a couple coming up.
Well, that'll be interesting. Is the job of court clerk a full-time job, or?
Well,
I know it seems like it's 90 hours a week for you most of the time.
when I first started, it didn't take as many hours as it does now, but it just keeps growing and growing till eventually I think it will be a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, I love your office.
Oh, I do.
And it's such a great pleasure to meet you, Nettie. Thanks for coming down here. I know it was a challenge for you to get up and get down here and get down because she's a little bit shy about the camera. But you're a beautiful lady, and thanks so much for all of your help through the years.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're always ready. We're moving down the hall. What's next, Jack?
Well,
So look at this great sign.
Premier number one here is secretary to the supervisor, but she's more than that. She's a helper for the highway department. For Dick Boris, who is superintendent. And she's also does lots of work for Bob West, who's our code enforcement officer. And of course Frank Goodrich, she's also deputy clerk. So she's involved with a little bit about everything going on.
She's sweating right now because she knows we're talking about her. She knows that door is going to open and we're going to go in and chat with her.
Yeah, her name is Carol Berry.
Yeah, we know.
Outstanding job she does.
Now, if she didn't lock the door, we can go in here. Oh, Carol, you didn't lock us out. How are you?
I should have locked you out.
It's great to meet you.
You too.
The first thing we saw when we walked in is your smile this morning.
Well, that's
That
good.
made the whole day for us. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Me? Well, you caught me off guard.
Where do you live? Do you live around here?
I live on the Joewood Road in Mooers Forks. Been there for 6 years. I've been working for the town for 11 years.
Have you really? How did that start? We just asked Nettie how she started her job here. Sometimes interesting how we get our jobs.
I worked for Jack at Dragoon's Farm Equipment, and must be he liked me.
Yeah, see that? How could he help
And
it?
then Marge Hemingway was the secretary before me, and she retired, and I got the position.
So is this a full-time job for you?
Yes. Yes, it
Right
is.
here every day.
Every
What do you
day.
think of this building?
I love it.
This is really incredible. I mean, you know, we knew you had a new building and had the open house and everything, but you can't, until you see it, you can't picture it in your mind. And this is just about as neat as anything I've ever seen.
It's beautiful. Nice place to work. Enjoy working with everybody.
Now, what kinds of things do you do in the course of a day here? Jack gave us a little idea, but fill us in.
I take care of the payroll, and I keep the books up to date, pay the bills, monthly reports, financial reports. I help Bob West, the building code inspector. I help Frank. I do some work for the fire department.
Do you really?
Yes, typing
One
and
big happy
with the fire
family
chief.
up here.
Yeah, we all work together.
That's
It
important.
is nice. Everybody gets along. It is a nice place to work.
That's great. Carol,
Close to home.
oh, that's true too.
5 minutes probably.
Does it take 5
Yeah.
minutes to get here? There's a lot to be said about not being on freeways to go to work for an hour and a half every morning. I can't imagine what that must be like for people in the city
I wouldn't want to either.
because you're teed off before you ever get to your desk.
Yeah.
I don't like to get teed off till I get there, see?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
like you, it only takes me 10 or 12 minutes to get to work. That's great.
It's nice.
Yeah. We've talked before about how important it is for people to live around their hometowns. A lot of people who move away wish they could come back. And there was a time period in North Country history, and I don't mean to get my soapbox out again, but why the heck not? When we did lose a lot of our young people because there just weren't jobs available around here. But that's turning around, and things are getting better, and a lot of our young people are not only staying here, they're getting educated here at our wonderful colleges, universities, and they're getting good jobs, and they're staying here. And that's good. It's nice to live in your hometown.
Yes,
isn't
it is. Yes, it is.
Carol, I didn't mean to embarrass you,
Okay.
but yes, I did. Thanks so much for meeting
Nice
us here
meeting
today,
you.
and have a great day and a good life.
Thanks for coming.
It's nice when we can have a room named after us, isn't it, huh? The
Yeah.
Goodrich Room?
That's a Goodrich room. Quite a few years of dedication from the Goodrich family.
It says 100 years. Can that be true?
That's 100 years. Frank's grandfather and his father, and then Frank Jr. has been on here for, I think Frank must be up around 28 years. He'll tell you. He's been here longer than I have. He's the old man of the group.
This is what I love about small towns here in northern New York. The families stay in business, like your business. Your business has been here since when? I forgot. You tell me every year.
54.
54. Boy, you're going to make me go back to my junior year in high school. Huh?
Must be right my age then.
Ooh, I think we're tracking pretty close, my
I was
friend.
in the senior at 54.
Were you? I graduated in 1955. A little tiny school down in Mooers that every school I ever went to was torn down. I don't know what that said, but they decided that they were washed up every time I left the school. They tore it down. I had 11 in my class. How many did you have in yours?
21. 21 girls and 7 boys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty good average. I
Pretty good
think.
average.
The great schools. Was your school wasn't centralized then, was it?
No, it's right over here.
Yeah, neither was mine. They centralized very shortly after I graduated, I think, down in Mooers, Brushton.
Sometime I think it'd been better if we'd have stayed right where we were.
You know, a lot of people thought that way, and there were always controversies when centralization came along, and it took away, I don't know, and people will not agree with me all the time, but it took away part of that identity. Because every area had its little schoolhouse, every area had its little high school.
Well, I think we got sold down the tube, I hate to say it, but as you say it, because this school, when they talked about it, it's supposed to be halfway between Champlain and here, a whole new one building, take care of everybody. And it makes it hard, and right now we have, you can go about 15 miles west. Well, you go from that 15 miles, then you go another 7 miles from here to Champlain. That's 22 miles to run. And, you know, you take some of the younger kids doing at 15 and then some going 22. When they start getting on the bus and time to return, it's a long trip.
It really is.
And it's, you know, I mean, it's a long ways from here. And it's supposed to be lowering taxes. Well, our taxes up every year.
This is your supervisor talking, folks.
One thing I can't say, we have a little town of Ellenburg. We got in our same school district, our district and Ellenburg district, and there's over $6 taxes difference between Ellenburg and Champlain. And if one house is on one side of the road, he pays $6 a thousand less than the house on the opposite side. And I think I won't say anymore.
I think we hit a sore spot here this morning. But, you know, everybody's got a right to his or her opinion, and sometimes progress is not progress. And when you get to be our age, you get a little perspective because you can actually look back and remember how things were. Young people weren't around then, so they don't know. So I guess when we get to be, I won't say we're old, but as old as we are, we get entitled to express our opinions, don't we?
Well, I think so, and I feel bad for the younger generation. There's two's got to work in the family, and the biggest part, you know, our land tax is way less than half what school taxes are. And, yeah, I could go on, but I shouldn't. I don't want to. But I'll say a couple more. Look at all the industry we got in our district. Then you look at the district I was talking about, what they have got going for us. So I think there's definitely either poor run or there's something that the figures doesn't add up in my line.
It's very, very different in all the towns. We have always discussions about the differences between our little town, the town of Schuyler Falls, and the town of Plattsburgh, and then the city of Plattsburgh. And politicians and other people have for a long time proposed putting them all together. Had some guy call me on the phone, let's get them all together. Town of Schuyler Falls, town of Plattsburgh City, make it one unit. Well, it takes a lot of discussion before you start combining things. You went through that right here with your village in town, didn't you, just a few years ago?
That's right. And about, 10, 15 years when they tried to form, close a couple schools down and under one, and they was shot down. And I was told at that meeting there's only $500,000 difference. Well, I do my figuring pretty well, and I think it's a hang of a lot more than that.
If nothing else, you do your figuring pretty well. You've been in business for a long time.
Well, we better get off from the school, and we better get in to see Frank.
Your phone might ring. I don't know when this program's going to be on the air, but it'll be historical. I think your phone might go up. No, come on. Are we going to go in here? Look, he's making believe he's signing papers and doing all kinds of stuff. Don't let me catch you on the cord there, Jack. How you doing, my man?
Fine, thank you.
Great to meet you. Let me get around here and say hello to you. The famous Goodrich family.
You're right.
For 100 years, can that be true?
Yes, my granddad, my father. I've been in 34. Jack was just saying 28, but this year it'll be 34.
He missed a half a dozen years or so.
This year will be the 34th year for me.
Isn't that amazing? Did you ever think you'd do anything else, or did you just decide when you were a little kid, I'm going to sit in that chair over there?
No, I guess not. It just came along. Dad got sick in 1966, and the board appointed me to fill in his place, and I've been in ever since. So, just one of those things.
When did your grandfather die?
I think it was 1907. And the town clerk offices in those days were in local country stores up in Mooers Forks.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
Put up a big sign outside town clerk office on a piece of wood.
It's like they did with the post office. It's liable to be in somebody's house or the local grocery store, and that's where the telephone operator was very often, right off the kitchen of her house.
And then my dad had it in his store, Goodrich's country store in Mooers Forks, for 45 years. He had all the safes in there, and the town safe and his own safe, and it was all filled up with town records and things. So that's the way. And then finally they moved me up to the old town hall in Mooers Forks, and then eventually down here.
This is a neat building. We've been saying that ever since we turned that on button on the camera. This is pretty classy.
This vault here, if Calvin can get a picture of that, it's one of the nicer ones in the state probably, or the county. takes care of all of our town records. We're going to have more shelves installed on the other side, just like that one there. So things are pretty nice shape here now.
Yeah, when we were talking to Jack about the planning in this building. He said we didn't do much planning. I think somebody did a lot of planning. The way this turned out, is it meet your expectations?
I think so, above and beyond.
It's really,
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
Everything about it is really
Yeah.
neat. The open house must have been a fun day. I'm really sorry I missed it now.
I had to miss it. I had a blood vessel broke in my leg,
Oh,
and
man.
I couldn't come down. But the boys did a nice job with it, and you and Calvin too, also. Or Calvin was here, I
Calvin was here.
Yeah.
It's really a neat place. Your job is a little bit different than it was when you started these days, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes, quite a little more complicated now, and we're eventually, within the next year or two, we'll have computers. We just got back from the Association of Town Meetings in New York, and the Conservation Department is bound we're going to be on computers, so they're sending us one.
I can tell the way you feel about it because it was very, very hard for me.
Yeah.
When talk about teaching old dogs new tricks. And my computer at work and at home frustrates me even now, and I've been doing it for several years.
Jack and I and Carol will probably have to go to classes.
Well,
I know I
I did that too. I did
While
that too.
I'm here, Gordie, some lady just come in and was all excited and wanted me to hand this to you fellas.
Oh, Betty Perry.
Little donation, Calvin.
There you
I
go.
don't want him taking my picture, but so would you give him that?
Oh,
Let me explain that.
Oh.
When I arrived, Gordie, Betty was outside and she tried to get in and she turned the doorknob about 90% of the way that she needed to, but not 100% of the way. So she said, "The doors are locked." So I said, "Let me try." So I opened it up and she says, "Oh, well, I owe you hometown cable donation anyway." So she must have ran home and came back. So we appreciate Betty. She's been a long-time supporter, and her whole family is.
Magical Calvin gets the door open. When I came in, I heard the buzzer, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I said, "Oh boy, I'm going to jail. I know we got the courtroom right close by." Did you? Does the town have any of the records from your grandfather's tenure here?
Yes,
Funny.
yes.
Really?
I can show you a couple here.
Oh, that's kind of because
The oldest.
we're very interested in history on this program.
Shelving on this side, just like that.
You got some of the old books. Look at
Jackson
this.
sent it to let us use these floaters here. And these aren't the oldest, but I'll show you a couple of the oldest. The oldest records start in 1885.
Look at
That's
this.
our town records. And
Cloth-covered books.
I'll,
Somebody tried to repair them a little bit and hold them together.
I think we're eventually going to have to send them over to that Brown outfit in Vermont.
Oh yeah, they do
They,
restoration.
these are some of the old boys did pretty good. Were pretty good verse and death. Pretty good writers.
at
Some of
this.
Who was the
them.
first one entered?
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
The first record we have here is a
Jack Dragoon.
March 2nd, 1884. That's the earliest record. Is Daniel Nichols, a birth record. Then it goes on. We have a lot of sad things. A lot of these spaces are empty. They forgot to put the first names down.
Oh.
In the first book. This book covers all the births in the front. Then the deaths in the middle. You have the husband, the deaths, and then in the back of the page.
Oh, and it even tells what they died of, huh?
Yeah, they have what they died with. One might be cholera or colitis or
Pneumonia.
old age and
Cerebral
general
hemorrhage, yeah.
mobility.
And I see a lot of the names are still familiar. We talk about people staying in their hometowns.
This is the back. Right in the back is the marriage. The marriages.
Oh my, look at this.
These books are fairly good shape for their age.
Considering that they're
Yeah,
115 years old now, you know.
I guess my granddad probably did a lot of this writing.
Oh, you think so?
And then as we get up into the newer records, my mother was a retired school teacher. She did a lot of nice writing in these up-to-date ones. Yeah.
That's fun. You must like to just look through them every once in a while, huh?
Yeah, we do.
I recognize that name.
Yeah, that's Dad. This is when they used to correct a record. You'd put it in red ink,
Okay.
and then they would do those things back
So
in
that's
those
why they
days.
call you a junior. You are a junior,
Yeah.
indeed. Same middle name too, huh?
Yeah, Frank Ray. Yeah.
Isn't that great? When did the Goodrich family first move to this area? Do you know that?
Well, my granddad moved from Scioto, New York, up. My grandmother moved from Vermont. Then they got married and moved to Moores Forks.
So they were the first Goodriches here. You
Goodriches
think,
here.
huh?
We do have some older Goodriches that came out of the West Shazy and Beatmantown way back. Addie Shields found quite a few in one of the
Leave it to Addie,
older books down there that I didn't know it. I guess they were my distant relatives, I believe. Yeah.
It's nice to find out what the connections are, huh?
Yeah.
So you yourself have been around here for more than a week and a half, then, huh? Working as clerk for how many? 34?
34. Yeah. Doesn't seem that long, but.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
So you think you're going to do it for a while?
Maybe Jack and I might run one more time. And I think I'd like to try it in another term.
I don't think there'd be any.
I can enjoy this
Yeah,
work.
I think
enjoy people. So
You're probably a team, I think, by now, after all this time, right?
they have a great board here. One thing about our board, we've always, over the years that I've been in, they always have got along real well. Both parties, the Democrat and Republican, and never had any friction or battles or anything like that.
It's nice to see that happen. You know, politics are politics, and we're all involved in one way or the other with politics, or at least voting our favorite people into office. But it's nice in a town this size when they get together because they realize that they're all working for the good of the town.
Same good, yes.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Frank, thanks so much for inviting us into your little office.
Okay.
It's a good thing Calvin stayed in the door. I'd hate to get locked in and miss lunch. You know what I mean?
Well, we do have a new feature on this Mosler lock. If you're in here and it's locked, you just flip that and it'll pop right open.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, I wouldn't have to miss lunch at all,
No.
would I? Junior, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That's if you knew what to do.
Oh, I'd make a lot of noise. You can guarantee that. Before the cameras began in this program today, we came into Jack Dragoon's office to meet him, and he was opening the mail. Stacks and stacks of mail. They don't think you get mail in Mooers? Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, lots some good mail and some junk mail, but then of course we get lots of bills and lots of. Be surprised how much paper comes in.
You know, I think about that all the time as I look at the paper in my desk at work and on all the filing cabinets at home. And every now and again I say, I'm going to go through some of that paper and see what I really need. And then I get so discouraged, I sit down and do something else. But it is amazing how much paper comes through. This is a nice office. We were taking a look at that fish. And you asked us if we knew what kind it was. And I had no idea until you told me. Give me the history of that fish. That's great.
Well, the fellow you see on the end here is my grandson Mart. We have Dan next to him. But anyway, every year for the last 3-4 years, we got into this fishing tournament. And that's usually on Father's Day. And 2 years ago, I hooked that walleye right in the bridge in Ross's Point.
Did
there.
you?
Around a little over 8.5 pounds.
Beautiful fish.
Put up a nice fight. He really enjoys it. Now the other grandsons, there's the three of them there, Robbie, John, and one on the farthest, that's Gary's boy. And then you can see the other picture, that's Governor Pataki, which had the honor of meeting him on quite a few occasions. He knows where the North Country is.
I bet you does. That's great.
And also, I have Calvin picture after. This is on borrow. This picture here and that belongs to my wife Margaret.
Yeah.
But that's just on borrow. And architect and design, which did this building, Andy's wife presented this to us on our open house. That lovely.
Yeah, that's wreath. That's a beautiful wreath.
My wife wanted to bring it home, but she asked me, Mrs. Adela, and she says that stays in this room, so at least that's where it's staying.
That's great.
So,
Well, yeah.
I want to point something out here that unlike the White House, in Mooers they know what belongs to the supervisor and which belongs to the to the town.
Ooh, yeah. You won't be taking any furniture home when you leave, right, Jack? You may take that picture because it belongs to your wife. Oh, that's a beautiful building, and it must make you feel good to be in here.
oh, sure does. And get away and then come over here and dig through the mail. You know, I spend a couple hours, 1 hour a day, maybe 2 hours. As it needed, I'll be here. Of course, if you need me, I'm not too far away.
Well, it's nice to have your business right across the road. As long as you'll walk both ways before you go across, you're all right.
Well, if it's stormy, I'll drive across. If it's not,
I love
but
it.
when you go through the whole place, as in the past, we had to put we bought all new furniture and everything, because if you've seen what we had borrowed stuff, like from my place across the road where Carol used to have her office. Half the stuff in there belonged to me, and other stuff was out of the other people's houses, and we had nothing to be proud of to bring here, so everything we've had to purchase. And
Well, the residents of this area should be mighty proud when they come here, and, you know, almost everybody gets a chance to come in these offices one time or another to take care of business or just to look it over. And if what everybody else has told me today is true, that open house, hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands came through. So it's nice. Everybody can be proud of this place.
yep, and something to be proud of for everybody, for the whole community.
That's great. All right, we'll continue our tour. Oh, we had people trying to escape. It's a good thing Calvin and me are pretty broad at the beam there.
I think I still live pretty good too.
We don't let anything get by us anyway, huh? We're down at the other end of the hall now. What room have we got here? Bob's room.
Yeah, this is our code enforcement officer, Robert West. He also does, he's kind of divided up. He does work for Shazy as well as the town of Mooers. And he's doing a very fine job. And as you can see, he got stuff pretty well organized here now.
Everybody got their desks so neat. And I go back to my desk and I got stuff piled everywhere.
He didn't know you were coming either, but maybe Carol maybe have been in
You
here.
think somebody snuck down and straightened the papers out? That's not fair. This is a neat building right from one end to the other. I'm going to end up in the historian's office. I peeked in there on the way by, and that's pretty neat too.
She'll fill you in pretty well.
It's going to be great.
But in the code, it's getting to be pretty complicated, the stuff, the schooling and all this. And so it takes somebody that knows quite a bit about codes and buildings and that to be code officer. And then the next room we'll be going into will be our assessor. Prior to Gary, who we hire with the county, we had like Reginald Barkram. He was on for long as I was on, 20 some odd years, and he retired, and he was awful good to this town of Mooers. He did a lot that people don't even know about, and helping people and older people, and Gary's filled in the shoes tremendously well, and we pay so much per parcel that's how we determine how much money he gets is per parcel of land, and it's worked out very, very well. And as you'll probably be going in and meeting.
Yeah, we'll sneak in here. We'll sneak in here. We don't have to look busy just because we're coming in here. How are you, Gary?
Pretty good.
We see him in our town quite often, and every now and again in the building where I work in the government center. You're everywhere.
I'm all over the county.
I think a lot of people have no idea what an assessor does, so let's just fill them in for a minute here.
Well, right now we're into the senior exemptions, age exemptions, and agricultural exemptions. And it's a busy time of year because we have to make sure all these people reapply, and ones that are eligible apply for it. And after we're done this, we also have to do our March 1st is our deadline for all our new construction and all our new values. So we have to do this plus keep our current inventory up, building permits, all new construction. It's ongoing.
How many cotton picking miles do you put on your car every year?
A few thousand.
Wow.
I do I help in Blackbrook and several other towns.
Blackbrook?
Yeah, yeah.
That's about as far out of Plattsburgh as you can get, isn't it, in Clinton County?
Yeah, but I'm only assessor here. I'm the assessor here through the county. It's a program they have, and I do assessing in Scholar Falls on my own time.
Oh, that's why we see you over there quite a bit. Huh? Actually, you live there, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yep.
All my life.
How long have you been doing this job?
21 years. I've been here for 3 now, but 21 years total.
Yeah.
I've been working for Clinton County Real Property for 9 now.
We've been asking everybody what they think of this building, and it seems to be unanimous. Everybody likes it.
It's compared to what I had, it's like a Taj Mahal. It's very good. It's very, very nice, spacious.
That's great. So how much time do you actually spend up here, Gare?
Well, we're scheduled for, like 4 days a month, but we got other time in it if we need it, as needed, If we need appointments, we come or whatever. We take the time it takes to get the job completed.
That's pretty much what we all do, and there never seems to be enough time
Never enough.
for some reason.
Right.
Thank you very much for having us here. You thought you could escape. There is no way. Who are you?
I'm Jill Carell. I work for the Real Property Office. I'm just up here helping Gary for the day.
You was trying to sneak
Yes,
out
I
that
was.
door so bad, but we didn't let you do it.
Oh, you didn't.
Just so we're not going to embarrass you for a long time, but just tell us a little bit about what you do and about
Well,
yourself.
I'm scheduled to go town to town and help the assessors. So I travel. I don't come to Mooers very often, but I do Beekmantown, Altona, Ellenburg. And I just travel. I'm scheduled every month to go to a different town, and I just come in and help them get caught up with exemptions or whatever they need done.
Now, I've asked everybody else, how does one start in this job? How did it come about for you?
I had a real estate background, so that's how I started. And I just knew Jim from the office and coming in from the Real Property Office, and they had an opening when Reginald left. The person that Gary replaced, I replaced him at his job at the Real Property Office.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so that's how that worked.
Figured out.
Yeah.
So you like the new building too, don't you?
Yes, it's very nice, very nice.
I love it. Every room just smells like it's brand new.
3 windows, too.
Yeah.
3 windows, yeah.
That's like an escape.
I used to have a 3-window coupe. Remember those? No, I don't know if anybody in this room's that old,
No,
but
I don't remember.
thanks so much for
Nice to
saying
meet
hello.
you.
Thanks, Gary. We got another dedicated room.
We sure have. As you can see, Lois Orr was a town historian from
75 to 88.
75 to 88. And of course, now Carol's come right in at 89 until 2055, I believe.
Oh, boy.
But as you can see, we saved the best room for last, and I think you'll see quite a bit. And Carol's done one outstanding job, and as you can see, she has a different color rug than the rest, and whatever Carol wants, we
Whatever
oblige.
Carol wants, Carol gets. Now let us sneak in.
You
here.
sneak in, and she'll fill you in very, very well.
We'll do it. She's talking already, and we're not even in the room. It says welcome on the door, and I'm sure we are. And everybody who watches our little corner and everything else Calvin has ever done down through the years, and most of the things I've done, realize that we're very, very much interested in history. And there's no better history than the history of your hometown. Carol, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you?
We're just terrific. We're just so excited to be up here in Mooers today on this cool winter's day and the 23rd day of February 2001. We look at every program we do as a piece of history, and it'll be fun to reminisce about this 20 years from now.
We hope I'll be able to have a copy of this tape for the historian office.
That would be nice. Tell us how you got involved in history. Have you always been interested?
I've pretty much always been interested. I'm also a full-time elementary teacher, closing into my 33rd year.
Where?
At Mooers. And I will be retiring next year, but as part of the 4th grade curriculum is New York State history, and I had a really nice desire from that to learn more about the history of the community so that I was better able to teach the children. So it stemmed from that, and then I became a friend of Lois Orr, the past historian, and things just kind of kicked into place, I guess, and she retired, and I was asked if I would like the job, so I became the historian.
It's people such as Carol who get the kids at an early age and help to establish this passion for history about their hometowns. We've promoted it, and we've talked about it all the time, how important it is for us to know about history, because it gives us perspective about our lives in general, certainly about the area in which we live. And if you can start getting kids when they're 8 and 9 years old,
That's right.
interested in, who lived on the farm before they did and where their great-grandparents moved here, then I think you've accomplished a lot.
We go through the village, and I do a historical tour of the village, and then we progress into the cemetery, where we do cemetery rubbings with crayon and paper, not destroying any monuments or anything, and bringing these back to school. And we also do some of the historical markers, so they have a nice sense of history by the time we finish. We also sometimes have displays with artifacts in the hallways, and the children love getting into things like that.
We loved it when we saw the snowman
Yes.
motif when we walked in the door.
We have a leprechaun soon coming up there to fill the space.
We peeked into your storeroom.
If I knew you were going to look in there, I would have cleaned it up a little bit.
No, don't. We wanted to see it as it was, with the voting machines against the wall and the leprechauns and that's and the rabbits. That's fun to do. How excited were you to move into this?
Oh, I was thrilled. I have worked out of my home in a bedroom for several years, and my husband, who's also a teacher and basketball coach, was
Justice of the Peace,
and town judge. He was getting a little frustrated because I kept collecting a lot of things, and there was less and less room. So he was happy to have me move down here, and I was really happy to start putting some reason to why things were collected and saved, and to put some organization to everything.
What kind of help did you have? Or did you do it all yourself?
I did it all myself.
Oh, dear gosh. Really?
The town guys helped me move the things down, but I spent probably in excess of 300 hours in here during my summer vacation
Checks in the mail.
to set up. So it was a labor of love, and I really enjoy doing things like this.
History is always a labor
Yes,
of love.
yes, it is.
But it's a labor that's satisfying. I pity the people, as we've said so many times. Neither Calvin nor I make much money at what we do, but we love what we do, all the different things we do. I, work as a victims advocate for the probation department here in Clinton County. I love to help people in that way. I loved my career in the radio business. I love doing this program with Calvin, and all the things I do are fun to do, but they're also personally satisfying. And I can't imagine the people who have a job that isn't that way.
That's exactly right. I have a job that is satisfying and pays, and then I have a job which is satisfying and doesn't pay quite as much as my full-time job. But anyway, it's I really enjoy it, and I love being in this complex. The people are really nice to work with. Everyone is very superb here.
Yeah, it's we've learned quite a bit about the history of this area just since we came in here today and interviewing the Goodrich family. You talk about people who've stayed in the same job for all those
That's
years.
right.
Isn't that magnificent?
His father, and his grandfather were all town clerks for over 100 years, so it's very, very
I just
satisfying.
wonder, has anybody done research to know if that's occurred anywhere else?
I don't know.
I'll bet you it may be the only place in New York State.
It very well
And
may
that
be.
deserves a little, even more mention than Hometown Cable can give it. I'll have to give that a little bit of thought to see if we can give that Goodrich family some extra publicity, because that's kind of neat. It's like the late Roger Dashnaw, who was a justice for something like 42 years. And that's one case where Calvin and I wanted to sit down and interview him, do a interview, and then it was all of a sudden it was too late. We wanted to do the same with the Day brothers, and they died within a very short time of each other fairly recently.
Well, you need to get Frank shortly. He's still in his prime.
Oh, yeah. Well, we interviewed him briefly in there and had a good time doing it. And then we got to see some of the old books that his grandfather worked on in the 1800s.
Oh, they're wonderful to look through.
That must be a kick for you, too.
I was taking list of town clerks and supervisors and so forth from the beginning of the time in 1804 when the town was first officially established, and it's really interesting to find all of these different facets of the life and times of the people at that time.
Being a historian is kind of a discovery quest, because you never quite know what neat things you're going to uncover on a given day.
You learn every day, you learn something new, or someone brings something in for you. Now that I'm established here, people are feeling that they can bring things in, and I had a resolution written up, and it was passed by the town gentleman, and saying that things that were brought into the historian office would not be sold, given away, or otherwise destroyed. And even after I am gone, that will go on, that practice will go on, and that helps people to realize that if they give something to the office for display purposes, that nothing will happen to it. And it makes people want to feel a little more comfortable in giving.
That's a great idea. We've interviewed Keith Herkelo, who's a close personal friend of mine. He's the clerk in the city of Plattsburgh, and he's getting very involved in the history of the city and the town and the county. And he said to me a long time ago, if somebody wants to give something to you, make sure they put it on permanent loan so that it doesn't belong to the town or belong to somebody else, because unscrupulous folks, and I'm not going to point any fingers, have thrown boxes and boxes of such things away, which breaks my heart. So it's nice when you have these things and you know they're going to be around for other people to enjoy. Calvin's been looking around the room. For example, he's looking at a map right now. Come over to my left side here, Carol, and explain some of the things you have in this room. For example,
this is a map of 1869, and it's very valuable to me because it gives the names of the people who lived on the properties in the town of Mooers at that time. I also have a map right here of 1856 that I laminated just to protect it a little bit, and it's just a copy, but nevertheless it goes back 13 years prior to the 1869 map, and a lot of times people will write to me from all over the United States saying, do you have any information on so-and-so who lived in Mooers, and if I can help them by making a copy of either map, I have a smaller copy of that one, and I do all I can do to find information for people. But if they can see where their ancestors lived at a certain point in time, it has a nicer meaning for the people.
I can see that there's more than one Woods Falls in Clinton County. There's one right there in Centerville and Thorns Corners.
That's true.
Don't you love these names?
That's true. The Thorns were pretty prevalent people at the time, and Robert Thorne ran a blacksmith shop on the corner of Thorns Corners. As a matter of fact, I have a piece of his blacksmithing equipment that is coming in here shortly as soon as I can get it cleaned up.
Wow, no kidding.
And what we have over here, we have, this was done by Leeward and Lois Orr, and this is a map of the incorporated village in 1985, and I have a book that goes with that tells who the people were, and there's a little history on each of the buildings. Up above, we have some old advertising posters from the 20s and 30s and 40s and up through to the 50s from the McClellan Press in Champlain, and I laminated those.
Very familiar name to viewers of our little corner.
And did you get those through Bob, Carol?
No, I did not. I got those through Richard Ward of Plattsburgh.
Okay, Richard Ward, and I know Bob Ben also stumbled across a lot of these. In fact, one of them he found was Betty Perry just gave us a donation there, and her husband, her late husband, Bob, was a boxer in one of these posters. But these were posters that were from the McClellan collection, and before Wayne Miller got involved, they took these, and instead of sending them back to the communities that they belonged, they gave them to the Feinberg Library, to special collections. They didn't want to store them anymore, so instead of sending them back to the communities that McClellan's served at that time, they put them out in a garage sale. They gave them to a local church for a garage sale to sell at 10 cents each. Now, Richard Ward came across them, and he saved some of these for the North Country, and Bob Venn did the same, and it's a tragedy. You talked about stuff being thrown out just a few moments ago. This was an example.
It kills us, and we see it happen all the time when parents and grandparents die and the families just don't have room, or even many times when senior citizens have to move into smaller quarters and nursing homes and so on. Either they don't realize what's happening, or their children are managing their affairs. And, you know, a lot of the memorabilia are thrown away, but what kills me is when important things like this and photographs.
Oh, exactly. And these tell a history. They are history, and they tell a history, you know, of what happened at that time, and they're wonderful information pieces to draw from.
Last year, Calvin joined me in going to Ogdensburg. While I was camping at Coles Creek on the St. Lawrence, we took a day. We went up to the Remington Museum in Ogdensburg and went through the museum. I'd been there in the village and town for so many years and had never gone through the museum, and we were blown away. And while there, we told a story from a camping friend of ours, Mike Light and his wife, who live in a nearby community. I believe it's Norwood. And they were doing some remodeling on their front porch, and they were tearing some of the boards off to remodel, and underneath was a poster that had been plastered there back in the 1800s.
Wow.
It was magnificent, and it took him over a year and probably our little television piece to get the local newspaper interested enough to take a picture of it.
And it was still in decent shape?
It was in great shape, and what they did, rather than try to peel it off because it had been plastered there for 100 years, was build a frame around it, put some plexiglass in front of it, and make it kind of a permanent memorial to that poster. And I forgot what it was about, horse races, or I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it was something to do with a race, horse race,
Races, some tremendous and, you know, I talked about that quest, that discovery quest, and that's kind of neat. So what we try to do in the course of this program, and we'll just underline it while we're speaking with you, is for people to pay attention to what they have around their house.
Yes, and not be so quick to throw out things or ask someone, could you use it? And I'm always looking for donations. I know that I have as big of an office as was able to be given to me at this time, and so I've tried to go upward because I can't go too far outward.
Everywhere.
But, you know, people should try to remember now that since we do have an office, and I'm looking for donations all the time, and to, you know, run it by me first if they're thinking of throwing something out, and if I can use it, I'd be glad to take it off their hands.
And we love it when people share.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes a 100th or sesquicentennial or 200th anniversary for some of those photographs to come out of the drawers in the attics, and they go on display temporarily. But I want to. We have a good friend in Wayne Miller, whose name we've mentioned on this program, as a librarian at Special Collections at Feinberg. Wayne does a lot of research for us, but he's also is a wealth of information as a historian. And we like to, you know, have people consider preserving their materials with somebody like you, or with Wayne Miller at Special Collections now, where they'll be there forever and ever. They will be taken care of so other people can see them. And I often think, like digging in the ground, going with a metal detector, how many treasures are in people's homes, in that trunk, in the garage, or up in the attic. So, yeah, think about sharing these things with the public.
Sure.
And I know that's what makes your life a little better. What else do we have here?
What I tried to do in the office, basically, after I collected everything, I tried to put some organization to it. So I have different sections of the office dedicated to different areas of the town. This is dedicated basically to the fire department. We have an ice storm sweatshirt from '98.
We'll never forget that, will we?
This is a constant reminder right there. And we have some old fire department apparatus, thread chasers, and different things like this. Some old pictures and their extinguishers. And then over here in this corner, we've moved over. Since my heart is still in teaching, we have this dedicated to the school.
I love it.
In 1939, the school was built, and there's a picture of it on the T-shirt. And so we have some banners from before the school was built, when they were in different buildings around the village. And so we have some 1912 and 21 and 22. These were from Edith Watson.
Wow.
And an old school desk.
Where did you get the old school desk?
That was given to me by one of the teachers in Mooers.
Isn't that the neatest? And
Yes,
boy, does that
very old.
bring back memories. There's probably an inkwell hole under one of the books there somewhere.
Yes, it is.
Don't you love it? Because
I wish I had the inkwell.
I remember that desk, and I've told a story several times on this program about how my desk from, I don't know, maybe 4th grade at Messina Center, the school has all been torn down, showed up. Somehow somebody bought it when they were decorating a schoolhouse turned into a private residence. Within 2 or 3 miles as a crow flies from where I live now, and they found my little juvenile handwriting that I'd done with a compass as an 8-year-old and wrote Gordon Little up in the corner.
Wow.
I have a lady that lives up the street from me who still claims that I would dip her pigtails into the, So memories. So, that's a great corner. That's a beautiful corner. You got an old rifle there.
Yes, and I have an old instructor's rack from the 1800s that was recently given to me, and children would learn their lessons from, it was different ages would have different jobs to do from this particular lesson. So
Would
I
that
have
be
to
hung on the wall?
Yes, it's supposed to be hung on the wall. It's in pretty bad shape right now, and I have to try to get some of it repaired. So
I
that it
can
hang on
remember
the wall.
in the little schools I attended, all the things that would pull down the old maps and different
that
maps.
was
for
very
different
much like that. It still has the leather hanger. When I first started thinking of opening the office, I wanted to do something that would bring the people together. And what did we have here other than the agriculture? We had the maple sugaring. Probably 10 to 15 families were involved in the town in the maple sugaring. So I went around begging begging materials from them. I said, do you have any old tubing? Or this is from the Gadway brothers in Mooers up at Cannons, the bear claw snowshoes that were used in the woods to gather the sap. This is from Rudy and Sue Miller, the two-man crosscut saw that was used in the woods to clean up the debris. And I tried to get not milk pails, but sap buckets from all of their places, and then I went around taking some pictures.
Photographs.
So when I first wanted Mr. Dragoon to have this built for me, he thought I was crazy, and they said because my husband is a judge here, this is going to be called the hanging gallows. But anyway, I just wanted to get the pails off the floor and hang them in a way that was reminiscent of the way they would have hung on the tree. So, and this cabinet here was left in the old fire department, and no one claimed it. And I thought, well, since I don't have anything to display little things, I have a lot of school trophies and other memorabilia from different aspects of life in the town of Mooers. And so,
Deja vu. Somebody walked into my office. Rodney Brown's father, from Peru. He was originally from Mooers, and he brought me a copy of that very picture.
Was his name Ross Brown, the father?
No, can't remember. He lives in Peru right now. But I interviewed him, and he showed me that picture, and he
gave
said,
him a copy of it.
"Did you really?" And he said, well, "Who did he tell me? Somebody I know that was in that picture. Would it be Bob Venn?"
Bob Venn.
Bob Venn is in that very picture. Have you seen that picture before, Calvin?
I don't know.
You've seen a few pictures with Bob Venn in it.
I've seen thousands of pictures.
He pointed out Bob Venn in that photograph for me.
This is the 1943-44 season, and this is Bob Venn right
there
here.
with the finger pointing right at Bob.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
This was Paul Vogan, the principal, who also served as the coach.
Isn't that neat?
These days, that would not happen.
Oh, no.
They don't have the time.
Well, you know, when I was in high school, our athletic director, per se, was a local farmer who coached every sport there was.
Paul Vogan also taught a few classes besides being principal.
Oh,
Yes, he
yeah.
did. And he taught during the war, and he was telling me the other day that he was teaching some kind of an airplane class to get these gentlemen ready for going into the service. And it's amazing. He was a jack of all trades. He's a very wonderful man, and he has recently been ill, but we hope him the best. Recovery, anyway.
You got a lot of, what other neat things have you got in there? Where you got?
I have an old can opener.
Look
This
at
is
this.
Mooers, New York.
Oh, boy.
I have a leather. These were leather postcards.
I don't believe I've ever seen anything like that.
And it says on the front, "You are as sweet as any carrot." And this one here says, "Starting home from Manistee." And
This one went through the mail.
yes,
Look
it
at
did.
It's been
1905
oh God.
from Buffalo, New York. And
Washington Street is where that's where the Remington Museum is on Washington Street.
it's in Ogdensburg. Here.
Oh, I
This
thought-
one is,
Ogdensburg.
yes, it was mailed.
Mailed to Washington Street in Ogdensburg, and that's what we were just talking about the
Yes.
museum.
It's a small world.
It is.
It was mailed from Buffalo, and then it was stamped also Ogdensburg. This was a lady who's still living in Mooers, and her name is Myrtle Ellis, and she's around 90 years old. And this was a postcard that she gave me, and this was her mother.
Oh
So
my. Everything's got a story, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Everything. We could be here until sometime in June, but I just want to get a general idea. Oh my.
here is a little crowded.
Let us.
I think you and I could fit in here, okay?
I can fit in here. Calvin can sneak in there with his camera.
This corner is basically dedicated to the everyday life of the people. I have a yarn winder, a wringer washer, which was a donation from Lois Orr's son and daughter-in-law, Jack and Joanna Orr. An old wringer washer, lantern, and an old quilt rack donated by Kurt DeLong of Mooers. And this was my husband's grandmother's dress belonging to
wow.
Louise Stockdale Netto from the early 1900s. And this apparatus right here is a rug beater.
Oh, well, I know. I have one hanging in my infamous river room.
Probably you might have had a
And
spanking with one of these.
Well, I've been chased. The only time I could ever run fast is when my mother was chasing me with the rug beater. But I can remember taking the rugs outside, putting them on the clothesline, and beating them.
This picture here, although this lady never lived in Mooers, her name is Frances Willard, and she was the state president of the WCTU, which stood for the Women's Christian Temperance Union.
I'm very familiar with that from my childhood, sure.
Women's Christian Temperance Union was a very big thing in Mooers. And this lady was the president in 1876. This picture was found in the downstairs of the Mooers United Methodist Church, and it was given to me as a donation.
Isn't that
And this is a picture, this is a framed picture, just the way it was, of the Mooers Grange. This was recently found by Rainey Rabideau in the basement of the American Legion, along with something else I'll show you in just a moment. This is a map that Leeward and Lois Orr again did back in 1982, and it details the schools, churches, cemeteries, milk and cheese plants in the town of Mooers. And I have a book that goes with that that's a key also. It's very valuable to me.
Oh, that's great. Is this a ballot box?
Yes, it is.
Ooh.
It was a Republican ballot box.
Hmm.
And I took off the hardware and shined it up with some brass cleaner, and there we go.
Isn't that kind of neat that
That was
people wouldn't
found in-
realize?
Frank Goodrich had that hidden away up at his old town offices when he moved down.
Pictures, books,
Yep.
beautiful books.
These are old photo albums given to me by Kurt DeLong, and they are local families. Gorgeous pictures. The albums themselves are all gold leafed
Oh, my,
and
my. Look at
beautiful.
this.
There are tintypes in here, and some of the pictures have
We're talking,
gone.
we're talking pictures that were taken 140
Oh, yes,
or 45 years ago now.
These were ancestors of the Watsons and Moores, and this McCoy and Fitch people were very instrumental in the business storekeeping of Moores.
Daguerreotypes and tintypes and, oh boy.
This is a picture given to me by Frank and Ella Goodrich, and it's Frank's father, Frank Sr. and his wife in their store in Mooers Forks.
Look at the hat.
And I love the picture because it tells a story. It shows you at a glance what life was like in the early part of the century with the canned goods on the walls, and how the shoes were displayed.
Looks
and
like
so
rolls
forth.
of linoleum.
Yes, they had everything. It was a wonderful picture. I have another one of Jack Dragoon's grandfather too, like that, and it's the picture just tells 1,000 words.
All right, let's sneak out of here. Just before we go any further, I want to ask you to tell our audience, if you will, how often this room is open so people who view this can get an idea what you've got on display.
Every day after school, I'm over here until approximately 5 o'clock. I know it's not conducive to everyone, but it's the best I can do. So I get out of school at 3:15 and I'm here by 3:20, 3:25, and I stay until around 5 o'clock. And during the summer, I'm here just about every day. And I'm also, if someone calls me at home or calls me here and wants to set up an appointment, I'll come in on the weekends. So.
You know, you're getting old when the historian's office has many things that you remember from your lifetime, and this is one that many of our viewers will have no idea what that is. But that was an oil bottle.
Yes, it was. This was from Ted Willette's garage in Mooers, and the patented date is September 14th, 1926.
They recycled oil, in case you didn't know, and when you were really, really poor, like we were when I put my first car together, you'd go down to the local service station and get the recycled oil in bottles just like that. Is that neat?
It's very interesting.
You got a nice...
I have a nice collection. It's been getting bigger all of the time, and I wanted to find a nice way to display the pictures that I have, and so I started, you know, I received many of these just in boxes, and you have to go through and sort and figure out which ones you are going to use.
Nice display. I might interrupt you for a minute. We're going to put a new battery in and be right back. All right, you're discussing photographs. Photographs are very special to me, even if I don't know the people, and I know they are to you, too.
Yes, they are, and I wanted a nice way to display these, and so I knew that finances are not always very flexible when you're dealing with the town, and I bought these photo holders myself because I was getting embarrassed always asking Jack for more money and more money. So, and I knew he had put in a lot for my office. So I bought these, and I thought it was a nice way to display the pictures. And then I ended up getting the frames and matting all of the pictures, because all old historical pictures really should be matted so that the picture does not touch the glass.
That's a very good point that we've made a few times in the program before, but many people forget.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these historical pictures, you know where I found them? In wicker baskets.
Mm-hmm. Piled on top of each other.
Piled on top of each
wrinkled,
other, all curled
up.
And what irritates me even more than that, they're not written on.
Mm-hmm.
So that wonderful grandparent dies, as we mentioned before, as we all must do sometime, and the grandchildren have no clue. Dr. Richard Frost is writing a book on the history of Plattsburgh for the city. And he's been at my house several times showing me old photographs and seeing if I recognize some of the people. He was at my home the other night, which would have been mid-February 2001, and I could recognize a person here, a person there. I knew that one was Governor Dewey and one was so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very difficult to
Yes,
take
it is.
an 80 or 90-year-old picture and decide who that is.
People should always remember to label on the back and also put the year. That would be most helpful.
Yep.
As we're moving through here, we have I have copied the cemetery books for the town of Mooers, and I also have an updated cemetery listing of the town of Mooers that Clyde Rabideau did last summer. It hasn't yet gone to
He's been a busy beaver on that.
He's a very busy man, and he's also been very, very ill this winter.
I heard that, and I know his friends who are watching this program would like to hear that and wish him well. He's in Hawaii, and I just got the word about 2 weeks ago in very early February, and that distresses me a great deal.
But anyway, he's been very helpful, and I use his update a lot. And I try to keep the cemetery books up at the end of every calendar year, and I keep track of all who have died in the town of Mooers through the year, so my books are up to date. I have a historical collection of various books, and I know that some historians organize their books on the shelves by the Dewey Decimal System or other systems that are best for them. I do mine by subject, and so if I'm looking up something on Altona, for instance, I just go to the A section, or if I want something on the railroads.
It works for me.
It works for me. It works for me, and I can really put my hand on everything in here. So I'm getting a nice historical collection to use.
Oh,
Also, these are copies of various things. I have 911 listings for 99, 2000. I have the 1800 Clinton County Census, 1850 Ellenburg.
1851 Odelltown. Wow,
Odelltown.
is that neat?
I have the Odelltown, which was really interesting to me because Odelltown people, a lot of the listings of the family names in here are very familiar to me, and a lot of the people settled in this area. So.
Well, and it was, prominent during the Battle of Plattsburgh and the War of 1812 on both sides of the border. Oh, look at that.
I have
Looks-
1880 Moore census, the Presbyterian Church records from 1807 to 1881, Town of Moore census, 1892. Then I go to the GAR, Angel Post 411, and the GAR stands for the Grand Army of the Republic, and these were people who served in the Civil War, which is 1861 to 1865. And to tie in with that, this piece up here on the wall was recently found by Rainey Rabideau and them buried under a stack of things in the basement of the Mooers American Legion.
Look at
And
this.
so I just cleaned it up a little. We took it apart just basically to clean it up and put things back the way they were, but I wanted to keep everything just as it was. And
Look at
so-
this. Just take a look at the neat stuff in there.
I don't know if Calvin can get in with
You
his
can
lens.
see it. We even got a bullet in there.
There's a bullet. There's some some post commanders. These are identified, and then we have some Civil War commanders up there with all kind of ribbons from where they went to reunions and so forth. But these ribbons, 1889, 91, 1884. So it was really a find.
Boy, talk about treasures, and we have been talking about treasures. Look at this here.
This is when Steinbach's was going out of business. My husband thought I was crazy, but I went down to Steinbach's and I asked them if I could buy some upper body mannequins, knowing that I wanted to display some clothing. And mostly everything was bought up by a certain gentleman. But anyway, I managed to get a few pieces and told him that Mooers was not a very rich town. And so by the time I finished talking, I got quite a bit for not much money.
Way to go, Carol. That's neat. Wonderful photographs and lots of other kinds of books. Newspaper
Clippings. This is just Mooers newspaper clippings, basically from the 70s up through to 2001, and also I have a couple from the 60s and one that was just given to me from 1925 to 75. So
I love the old school pictures, the North Star School, and that great, and Thorns Corner School, because it's just
Down School.
Oh my.
This was our historian Lois Orr when she was a little girl going to the Down School, and
look
these
at
are
that.
members of her family. So it really does tell a story.
They all tell stories.
Yes.
The photographs just capture the essence of who people are, and there are many of the world's religious and ethnic groups who believe it actually captures a part of your soul.
I also have a collection of the yearbooks from Moore Central School
Do you
from the
really?
beginning, from 1941. I believe that was the first one because of the going to war and everything. Then around the corner and closing in on the finish.
I got to stop for just a moment. Is this a precious photograph?
Yes, that's probably my favorite photograph.
I'm so happy. We're on track here today.
I also use this photograph in my classroom to talk to the children about how does she look, what is she wearing, and she's wearing a bracelet, jewelry. She's got a beaded dress on the bodice of her dress, and she looks like a girl that came from an upper middle class family. And then I did a little more research on her, and her father was the town veterinarian. So she was a little bit better off than a lot of the children.
104 years ago. This is where she lived, no doubt.
Yes, she lived there. That was the home of Dr. and Mrs. Charles Mulvey. It's on the Hemmingford Road. It's now the home of Diane and Philip LeBombard.
I love it.
And over here I have a collection of the genealogies I've done for people. I have around 160 since I've started that as I do requests for people, I make copies and put them in folders so when other people come in I have a little bit of an easier access and an easier time. So that's what that is, and these are some of the books I use a lot here, on different histories of the local towns. This is an interesting picture feeding the piglet Moores School Board, 1952. This was up in Canada. Probably wouldn't be having the piglet nowadays in the restaurant.
At the table? No,
At the
probably
table.
not.
And over here I have a little more.
Let me stand next to you over here so Calvin gets a good shot of this.
This is
What
more
a
of the.
tasteful corner. Beautiful.
Thank you. This is more of the maple sugaring apparatus, and in here we have a lot of the spouts. And I
All
have
the
a very
tap.
old.
Look at the taps.
This is a very primitive one of the just a wooden spout.
Many different styles down through the
Many
years,
different styles.
right up to the plastic
That's
tubing
correct.
of today.
This is this corner here is a little whatnot corner. This is the telephone that came out of Ted Willette's garage.
Oh, it rings.
Still
I love
has
it.
the ring to
I
it.
love it.
And then we have an old telephone that was also given to us. This would be Mr. Dragoon's grandfather, Henderson Ray, and this was a plate that came from his store in 1914. And here again you see Mr. Ray in the store, and it tells a wonderful story without saying a word, because if you look at the things on the walls and what he displayed, it really is it's a very informative, it's a gorgeous historical photograph. And that would, you say, Jack, in the early 1900s when your grandfather was in the store? This plate was in 1914, so
Probably around that time. Jack's sneaking up behind us here.
He worked in the store until he was 92 years old.
Did he?
Pretty near 92, 91 something. When he ended from there, he went to he lived over the upstairs of the store at that time, and then he went from working at that age, and then he went to bed, and then his feet and stuff, and you didn't have circulation enough, but he was for a while laid up in bed by that. He went, and then before that he lived up near the road to go to Hemmingsford, and about 7 o'clock every morning he would go down. He would come back at noon. He would go back, come back for supper, go back down to the store until about 9 o'clock, and he would come back again. And that was done 6 days a week, and that was the hours.
We wonder why people are so industrious and why Jack and his family have been staunch business people in this area for so long, because there's your heritage right there.
That's exactly right. It's a gorgeous picture. This was a picture that was given to me. It's a sort of a collection of photos from 1901 taken up in Mooers Forks, and this would be Frank Goodrich's wife's grandfather, Mr. Guy Howard, and he employed different men to there was like a ravine where the train would go through, and the snow, as you can see, collected in this area, and they called it the cut. So they would get various men out there to shovel off the tracks before the train came through. And these are a series of the pictures right here.
Look at this photograph right here.
Mhm.
Isn't that neat, with a big snowplow on the front?
So I thought they were wonderful pictures. Little but mighty.
Yeah. Well, like I said, every one of the photographs tells a story, but this whole room tells a collective story of the history of Mooers, and every one of these buildings is so neat.
These pictures were taken around the turn of the century in Mooers Forks and given to me by Mr. Frank Goodrich, so I really am very appreciative to him and his family. These were taken by a photographer who came around, and they were taken basically of the four corners in Mooers Forks. So this would be like where Tyrone Rabideau lives right here now at the corner. And this was the Riverside Hotel where the Paris, just a little south of the Paris garage.
We got a milk can. How many of those do you think I've thrown around in my wild and woolly youth?
The milk can from Lucian and Eleanor Duquette from the 1940s, and they lived up at Thorns Corners. And I also have the piece of blacksmith machinery that's coming in here. Mr. Dragoon's going, oh my God, not something more.
You got a
But
quilt?
it's small, and it's
Yeah.
yes, this was a quilt from Eliza Farr Coakley, done in the 1940s, and it was on display at the New York Quilt Project at the Museum of American Folk Art in New York City. So,
What
and
a
I
room. What a room.
did my best.
What a
And that's
room.
about it.
I see you got the Agway maple syrup gathering system. You got a lot of maple stuff here because it's so much a
Yes,
part
it
of our
was. I
heritage.
haven't got a lot on the dairy farming yet. That is to come. And we have one little cow that's hanging on from the beam that Mr. Dragoon purchased. It was a little ornament. I don't know if he wants to tell you how much it cost, but it's pretty valuable.
I'm trying to think. It was back down to Plattsburgh. They had a show down there, and people could bring different stuff in. And Jim Dugan made that up there. And then I think it was Trimex and other people give some money for a donation. So with that money, we bid it on the cow. I think Leonard Brown's to blame because he was on the other side bidding against me. And I think we're up to $175.
Oh, boy.
But we spent the money that was donated to us. At least we came back with that.
I won't say it was an utter disgrace.
Wow.
That's pretty neat.
The money went for a good cause. I forgot what it was raised for at that time down there.
A very moving story.
Oh, here we go. From utter disgrace to a moving story.
I also wanted to tell you that we do have the historical review of the town of Mooers available. It's been updated from 1976 to 1999. And these are on sale for $10 if someone comes into the office, or $12 if they are to be mailed out. And at this time, I would like to present to you and Calvin each a complimentary copy from the town of Mooers.
This is very exciting
your
for both of us.
viewing
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
This is my second copy. I've
Oh,
already
well,
bought one.
then I'll take that one back.
No.
Oh, it's beautiful. Carol, just before we leave, I know you had a dream, and now it's pretty much fulfilled in this great room. Oh, you want to stop for a minute? Is that what you want to do? Okay. All right, we're back again. Calvin suggested that we just talk about a few things about the history of Mooers that are in this book. This is a delicious book.
As you probably may or may not know, the Burlington and Ogdensburg Railroad came through and had their tracks were here in Mooers from 1850 on, and then the Delaware and Hudson came through around 1852. And at this time, what we're seeing here are some Delaware and Hudson and Rutland Railroad photos of locomotives from the Larry Marnes collection, basically. And we have some pictures of the Mooers Depot and what it looks like today in 1999, and also of the Mooers Forks Depot, which is now Granger Balloons.
Mm-hmm.
Mooers Depot in the 1800s, the late 1800s and the early 1900s, was a very thriving place. And Mooers itself, from around 1900 to 1925, was very thriving, with approximately 65 businesses and factories within the village limits itself. So it was a very thriving. And then with the demise of the railroad in the 20s and 30s, along with that went the demise also of many businesses that would have followed a railroad. For instance, hotels. There were wonderful hotels that were, let's see if I can show you a picture here of one of the hotels at the Mooers Depot. They were just grand, beautiful buildings, and everything is now gone, pretty much. Here we have a picture of the Mooers
There's a shirt factory.
Shirt and Power
Yeah.
Factory. And
Clothespins and clothes racks, the first things they made. I just
That's
read
exactly
that.
right.
Neat.
And they added the power plant in 1913, and up until that time there was no power coming to Mooers. And when they did have power, as late as 1920, they would turn the lights off during the day, and they would turn them on approximately 4 o'clock in the early evening, so that you really needed to benefit from the light at that time just to save the electricity. But anyway, the shirt factory closed down in 1925, and the interest in the power company was turned over from the New York State, or to the New York State Gas and Electric, around 1930.
And some of the pictures you've seen on our program today are in this book, such as that
Yes,
one right there.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And this is an interesting picture here. This was a block building that was right where Route 22 goes down to Plattsburgh, where you gentlemen probably traveled from. Here's the Mooers Purdy Hotel, and this building was called the Scriver Block, and they had a Bible school and a store, and students would room there to go to school in Mooers. And this building was a 3-story building, as grand as the Manette store, and it was torn down when they put in Route 22. So Mr. Dragoon was pointing over there to the Mooers Industries, and
Yeah, let's
tell him about that,
let's
Jack.
move down here. Oh yeah, look at that.
Well, I think when the slipper factory was here, I forgot how many they employed. It was pretty large employer, I don't know, 150, maybe 200. Well, anyway, they run in little financial problems. So anyway, they sold the workers and anybody in the community stock on it to raise money. Well, I guess that's what you can see. It kind of bellied up right after that, and the stock, the people that donated the money, that's all they ended up with is the paper.
It's
It
kind
just
of
happened to be that's my wife's spending. That was her name back then. She worked there.
historical document now, since it dates back to 1958.
That is very true. Everything is historical. I also have a collection of, if I can just scoot around, Calvin.
Yeah, we'll walk by you. We don't have anything formal on this
A
program.
lot of postcards and
Oh my.
from Mooers and Mooers Forks, and I wanted to way to just best display them, and so I thought if I put them into a photo album, the best I could do, other than just putting them away in a cabinet, which is defeating the purpose. So I have some wonderful pictures, some old photographs that were mounted on postcards, and these are all of Mooers, and at the Mooers Depot, down here, the old custom house, and sometimes there are pictures found here that you would not find anywhere else. So I was very, very thrilled to get them, and these are very valuable cards as time goes on, because collecting postcards is a pretty big money item now. This is of Mooers Forks.
Greetings from Mooers Forks to all of you.
Souvenir of the O'Neill Brothers store, Mooers Forks. And these are all scenes from Mooers Forks, the old schools. So this is now the church hall in Mooers Forks. It belongs to St. Anne's. My husband and I and Linda Rainey this school was built in 1928, and the three of us were the last ones to teach in that building as part of the Northeastern District.
Yeah.
So, and that's about it. I
Well, let's talk about dreams. I said you both had dreams when you built this building. It's kind of a dream come true to have a nice room like this. In the future, as historian, what would you like to see happen? Anything special that you're dreaming about that you may or may not see come to fruition in your lifetime?
And Jack is dreaming that I don't say anything at this point. Probably the dream I have is probably to make it a little larger, and I know that he was very good with giving me the best that they could give me and the biggest they could give me at the time, because I can't have all of the room here. But perhaps in the future we could expand, and I was telling Jack maybe we could go right out that wall, have a nice little archway, and go right out into his farm machinery lot and have a little extension. But I'm just hoping that in the future that someone else after I'm gone takes over and tries to preserve the past, and I think I've tried pretty hard to do the best I can with what we've had.
You're to be tremendously complimented, not complicated, complimented for what you've done in this room. It's a most tasteful display, and I don't blame you for wanting to preserve history. I think we're all learning how important it is now suddenly the North Country and the world is discovering the Battle of Plattsburgh as being a tremendously important thing, and although we always knew about it, and there have been celebrations, what it can do and should do for the future is bring people around. This heritage tourism is getting to be one of the biggest industries in America, and if we can bring people up to Mooers and Mooers Forks to look at the old buildings and to drop in and see Carol, this would be a nice destination for people, either on their way through or stop in and stay a while, right?
Thank you. Yes, and I also wanted to say this, that I feel very fortunate to be having an office here, and as I've gone around to different historian meetings, and we have them in different towns throughout the year, Some of the historians are in very, very poor shape. They have very little office space. They have little cubby holes or nothing at all. And the state of the town historian is a pretty deplorable state. And I think it needs to be understood that you are saving history, and it should be an important and intrinsic part of every community, and that every town officer should be realizing that it's not a joke, or you're saving history for the future for someone else, and it's really important. So that's why I tried to establish a mini museum as well as a historian office, because I knew we didn't have either, and so that's why I tried to combine the two.
Well, we invite lots of people up here to see you and to tap into that great resource that you are, because you're so interested. And we don't mind you telling your husband that he escaped this time. Well, we'll catch him if we have to go right in the classroom to get him.
That's good.
And, well, we have enjoyed ourselves here, and we thank you for being a big part of it, Carol.
Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and coming to Mooers, so come back anytime.
And let's move again over here to wrap it up with our town supervisor, Jack Dragoon. Thanks so much for opening your doors to it. I know it's embarrassing for some people to be taken away from their busy day to go on television, but this is an informal North Country program, and I hope it lasts forever, because I think today, as we try to every day, we've told a story about your community, and we like the story we've heard.
That's correct. But one thing Carol didn't tell you, I asked her what size room she wanted. And matter of fact, we went a little bit larger. So she forgot to tell you that.
But she doesn't want you to knock that wall down until sometime next summer, so don't worry about it.
I didn't know, though, I would be getting so much stuff, Jack.
Isn't it great? It just gets better and better, and it is nice. This is a good focal point for this building, to have people come in and just look around. Excuse me for coughing. I hope that we've whetted their historical appetites and get them in, tell some stories. Maybe you can get a tape recorder and some of the old folks come in here and you can push the button and say, yeah, tell me what it was really like in 1907.
Yep, that would be something.
That's great.
And I also, again, want to thank both of you for coming. And if this is on before March 27th, you can come and have some pancakes. And also
he's going to work his way up to
also,
the
you can be a good time to give some donation to Calvin for what the type work he's doing. That would be a good time.
It is a labor of love. Calvin and I talked about this many times, and the late Bob Venn before him, having done hundreds and hundreds of similar programs. We think it's absolutely vital to capture these things now so that your school children and your grandchildren and great-grandchildren in years to come will be able to sit down and watch this tape and say, yeah, that's pretty neat stuff they did way back in 2001, huh?
That's for sure, and it'd probably be nice if you're driving by. I don't know if Calvin's taking a picture of where we were located before in Mooers Forts, and just see where we come in this length of time.
It's nice to know where we've been, where we've come to, and who knows where we're going to be tomorrow. And that's the way we always end the program. Isn't that interesting? That's called a segue. Who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.
Yes, Calvin Castine, Gordie has departed, and we're going to wrap up our tour. Jack has taken us into the warmest room in the building. Where are we here, Jack?
Well, this is our furnace room. We have 3 furnaces. They're something like you would put in a house. They claim this more efficiency than one great big boiler. The most that will run is 2 at a time. One is always on a standby for if we have trouble with one furnace, then you can go to the one there is being idle. So most of the time there's only 2 that's running at one time. And behind the wall there you'll see that's a firewall there. We also can see there's lots of copper. Everything's in hot water. So this operation runs a firehouse as well as all the town offices. Plus we also have an alarm system hooked up. In case of a fire, it rings into Albany, then they can call fire control. That's also we didn't mention before. On the furnaces, Liam Menard and Jim Menard and Jim's son did most of this work in here on the furnaces. I didn't mention before, Wayne Supernaw, he had a contract for quite a bit of the outside work, the roof, the metal work, the outside, and the cement work. Then the low bidder on all the brickwork outside, and on one firewall was Francis Menard Construction. So we kind of spread it around, and at this time I forgot how many, something like 65 places where we bought lots of these supplies from. We got open quotation most of the time to see which is the lowest, and that's the way we went, or who could do the job as soon as we could get it done, because we were pressed for time when we near the one part of it.
All right. Thank you, Jack. And we're going to look at the fire station now, a little quick tour of the fire station, and we've brought in a gentleman to take us around there. And I don't use that term loosely when I say gentleman. We've got Bruce Sample here, and I'm just going to hand the microphone over to you, Bruce, and let you take us around. The chief is out of town, I guess, so you're elected.
Hi, Calvin. Right now we're standing in the sort of the old original club room of the firehouse, and as we go around we'll be able to see the expansion that was put on the east side of the building. We had it on 16 feet. That was full length of the original building that was here before. We went through, did major renovations, put in new walls, ceilings, new lighting fixtures. The entryway here, you can see where we created kind of a plaque room, I guess you'd call it. We have various plaques, starting with the EMS group and going on around the corner. We come over to the trophy casing that was donated in memory of Steve Manor, the former president of our department for many years. And then we also have other plaques that date back to years ago of the old station, the way it looked before and then afterwards, and various plaques of various films of the year and so forth that does distinguish these individuals. And then we come around through these double doors and we went into the our new club room. Part of this would have been originally the chief's office and the fire or heating system room. This was, of course, the heating system room we just went through. I was moved to a new location to better serve the fire department and the village town offices. So this was created for the firemen, give them makes good use of it at any spare time that we have, which is very little, but it's really enjoyed. Well,
It's nice to have a place in the community that these volunteers can come and relax and just enjoy themselves, not just work, because everybody here is a volunteer and they put in so much time. I don't think anybody would complain about them having a little relaxation here at the club once in a while.
No, it's a good outlet for them to come in here and kind of relax and have get-togethers. We come around this area. Well, we just passed by the necessity rooms, the bathrooms. They were completely done over during the renovations. I don't have a key right now to the chief's office, but maybe Calvin can get a look in through the window here and give you an idea what that consists of. Chris Bulris is the chief, and it serves as a combination office for the fire department and the EMS group. Lolo Miller is the EMS captain at the present time, and they share a common computer, which is pretty much required now by the state in keeping track of records. I don't know if I should. This door here is a utility storage room, which is always very cluttered because it's never big enough. Now we're entering the kitchen, which is pretty much the home of the fire department auxiliary. The auxiliary president at the present time is Sheila Drown. This was the old existing kitchen, which was done over completely. New cabinets, ceiling, walls, lighting fixtures.
It's a very pleasant place to work. A lot of places to do dishes, I see.
Yes, we can give them plenty of work in that area. Over on the back corner here is something we added on, which the auxiliary really enjoys. It's a storage room. I'll have to go ahead here and I'll, with a storage area and a walk-in cooler, which has really been a big help to the auxiliary and the firemen, keeping at times when we have programs going on, lunches or meals, it sure does come in handy.
And we'll point out there's only cola and tea in there.
This is a new passage door that we put in to save a few steps between the kitchen and the main area of the bay.
You didn't tell me I was stepping down.
We should have a warning sign there for a step down, I guess. This consists of the bay area for all the fire trucks. We have 5 vehicles in this bay, at 2 pumpers, a tanker, squad truck, and a pickup we call a brush truck.
Any changes in here, Bruce? This place looks awfully familiar with me. As we're taping this past weekend, I just ran the tour that Bob and I did at this fire station.
This here stays basically about the same. The only change in here would be the little entryway we put on right here. It serves as our base station for our radio. That's an enclosure that separates the radio area from the bay when they're doing any washing of hoses, trucks, or whatever. It keeps this separate area in here. We come down this hallway. This is a new hallway that was part of the extension that was added on, and it takes us into the new area for the ambulance. Prior to the addition, the ambulance was always behind a vehicle or in front of a vehicle that was needed, so you always had to move one out to get the one that you really needed. So this is a big improvement, and for our location of the ambulance, this gives us that extra bay, makes it much more handier.
Well, when somebody's having a serious medical problem or a traffic accident, wasting 3-4 minutes moving a vehicle it can be very critical.
Yeah, it does mean a lot in your response time to an emergency. Right now we're looking at a firewall that was mandated by the state that had to be installed for separation of the truck bay from the occupied spaces of the club room and the meeting rooms. This is a mandated of the state. And as we go up, we'll see what we call the hose tower. This is where we hang our wet hoses for them to dry out so to be ready to go next call. This is something new. We just installed this within the last. The tower itself was done, and we put in the rigging within the last month and a half.
So are there hoses up at the other end of those ropes then, Bruce?
No, there's nothing hanging on right now. Fortunately, we haven't had any major fires recently, so hopefully it stays that way. And after a major fire, you will see the hoses hanging on all these various ropes.
So we'd see them hanging down if there were some in.
Definitely. They come down fairly close to the floor when the hoses are hanging up in there.
And they drip dry.
Right. Uh-huh.
All right. That's about it.
That about covers it, I guess, Calvin. Yep.
Thanks to Bruce Sample for taking us through a quick tour of the fire station, and to Jack Dragoon for, on very short notice, making the town office facilities available and lining up some people to chat with us. So, this is Calvin Castine for Gordie Little saying thanks for watching and supporting Hometown Cable.